Race 1 of the 2022 Indonesian round saw a lights-to-flag success for home hero Feder Pratama by an 8-second winning margin. Redemption for his qualifying crash in the first visit of the season to Mandalika that cost him the Indonesian Grand Prix. The focus was behind him on a three-rider scrap for second, including the two main championship contenders. Gamie on the number 5, the only other rider with hopes of the title before the season finale, was never in podium contention. So it's down to a two-man shootout between number 13, Hakim Danish, and number 21, Shinya Ezawa. With only 3 points between them, neither was willing to give an inch, and at one stage, it looked as though we'd leave the penultimate race of the season with the pair tied overall. Along with Carter Thompson, they spent 16 laps trading blows, but that allowed Pratama to escape away. Turn 10 proved the main action hotspot. Ezawa particularly determined to make his moves there, but it was Thompson who sat second every lap over the line. Last lap error from the Australian briefly left him in fourth, but contact between the championship contenders in the final sector would allow Thompson back through. The fifth youngest podium in 9 years of the Asia Talent Cup, with 13-year-old Pratama, 14-year-old Thompson and 15-year-old Danish taking first blood at the Indonesian rounds. Good afternoon and welcome back to the Mandalika International Street Circuit for the final race of the 2022 Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup. Season 9 has taken us to 5 different countries, 10 races completed, and our two title rivals are still neck and neck. Steve English alongside me for continued coverage of the Indonesian round. A late dive bomb from Hakim Danish at turn 16 gave him third place over Shinya Ezawa yesterday, doubling his points lead, but it is still slender at just 6 points and could easily be reversed in race 2 here.
Only a 6-point advantage, so very much still in the hands of Ezawa. He's going to win this race and give himself a real chance of claiming the ATC crown. As it is, Pratama in yesterday's race had run off into the distance. That made things a lot simpler. It was really just a battle then to see who'd come out on top between Ezawa, Carter and Danish. As it was, Carter was second, Danish was able to come away with the podium, extend that championship advantage, but 6 points really means it's all to play for with 16 laps to go. All the bikes on the grid absolutely identical, so it's up to the rider to make the difference.
And the riders who've been making the difference in recent rounds, the recent 4 men, as well as your 2 championship protagonists. Feder Pratama, a race victory in race 1 yesterday, his second win of the season after success in race 2 of the Thai Grand Prix at Buriram. And Carter Thompson, the race 1 winner at the Malaysian Grand Prix, very much the man who held, as I said, second position throughout that race. So they, again, as far as the race victories concerned, are the men to watch. Feder Pratama then starts from pole position. Pratama, our race 1 winner, and by a dominant margin as well. He was never troubled, took advantage of the scrapping behind him for second and third positions to escape away in race 1.
And certainly it was a very impressive performance from Pratama to be able to do that. He was able to take advantage of the scrap going on behind him, but he was super consistent all the way through. Certainly a rider to keep an eye on. Second
on the grid is Carter Thompson, and that's where he finished in race 1 yesterday. Second over the line every single lap of the race as well, although there was plenty of battling in between. That was a third podium in 4 races. So Thompson, who scored just 19 points from the opening 3 rounds, has been on great form of late. Alongside him to complete the front row of the grid is Hakim Danish, and the man who of course is in extreme focus here. 6 points the gap over Shinya Ezawa, and we'll bring you those live championship standings as we go. But the way the two of them were scrapping it out yesterday, that could be changing from corner to corner.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a case of later on in the race to keep an eye on that, because in the ATC, with all these bikes being identical, it does tend to be where you stay in a big group. That's where Pratama yesterday was able to take advantage of a scrap behind them, get out of slipstream range, and then open up a big gap.
Second row of the grid for Jakrapat Fetasan, as well as Shinya Ezawa and Ray Wakamatsu. For Fetasan, an outstanding performance in the qualifying practice yesterday morning, and battling his way for another points finish. He's only been out of the points once in this 2022 campaign.
It's been a very impressive campaign for him, for that consistency all the way through.
Shinya Ezawa, the other rider in focus. 6 points then he trails by in terms of Hakim Danish. That means that the championship is out of his hands. Even if he were to take the race victory, he does need other results to go his way. In other words, the results of Hakim Danish are going to determine the outcome of this World Championship, perhaps even more so than Shinya Ezawa.
Yeah, keeps up his run though of scoring a top 6 finish in every race. Very good consistency, and that's something that a lot of teams will be looking at down the line as well.
Yes, that's quite right. Ezawa's managed to keep himself in the hunt with those consistent scores. He gained back 13 points race 1 in Sepang, and that's the only retirement of the season for Hakim Danish. Back-to-back podiums since then to very much assert his authority on the championship standings. Ray Wakamatsu, podium finisher race 1 of the Malaysian Grand Prix. He took 2nd position in Sepang. He completes the 2nd row of the grid. It's Marianus Nicholas as well as Rizwanto and Hafi on row number 3. So the number 12 of Nicholas, who will be hoping to stick with the lead group this time around. Best results goes back to race 1 in Buriram.
Yeah, lost a lot of ground in yesterday's race, dropped down to 10th spot. So for Nicholas, it's all about trying to just make a little bit more progress in the early stages and stay in that lead group.
Yes, 10th position after a retirement in race 2 in Malaysia. And that looks like problems on the grid perhaps for Putra, is that, who's got himself into difficulties, was due to start in 17th position, and that'll be a shame for him. At very least it's going to be starting from the pit lane here. Remember, he was one of only 2 riders who retired from race 1 yesterday.
Yeah, for Putra, disappointment there, but he will be able to take up a spot at the back of the grid if he's able to get that bike restarted. As it is, he was only qualifying on the 6th row of the grid, so only giving up a few spots.
Yes, and Rizwanto, who matched his season's best result last time out, will line up off the 3rd row of the grid alongside Hafi. Watch out from Adaki and Mie on row number 4 as well. Here we go then for the championship decider in the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup for 2022. The 9th season, the 8th title that's going to be handed out. Of course, we lost one due to the pandemic in 2020. It is Feda Pratama, the race 1 winner at the Indonesian round, who lines up from pole position for a 2nd time, hoping to escape away just as he did 24 hours ago for his 2nd victory of the 2022 campaign. Carter Thompson was best of the rest, sitting in 2nd position throughout that race, but the focus will be on the battle between Hakim Danish and Shinya Ezawa, separated by 6 points ahead of this 11th and final race of the 2022 season. Steve English alongside me to talk you through the 16 laps of championship deciding action. Hakim Danish has certainly had the advantage and the edge in terms of race victories. He's 4 victories to 2 up on Shinya Ezawa. Ezawa's had the consistency, but there's been nothing to split them throughout this weekend. Not much in qualifying, just positions 3 versus 5, and not much in race 1. It was contact aplenty on the final lap yesterday afternoon, and only a bit of good fortune, to be perfectly honest, that enabled Hakim Danish to remain in front of Shinya Ezawa as they crossed the line almost together.
Yeah, they could have easily both clashed with each other and ended up with nothing in yesterday's race. As it was Hakim Danish able to come away with that podium spot and pick up those all-important extra 3 points. 6 points gives him a bit of a buffer, but it's not an awful lot of ground to be able to give up to your rival. And certainly in a race like this, it's going to be a case of trying to make sure you're able to get through the opening couple of laps nice and clean. And we saw in the ATC race, it was one of the cleaner races we've had all the way through the weekend. Everyone able to do a pretty good job of staying out of trouble. We did have one clash with Putra and Swan in the latter stages of the race, but it is a tricky track around here, and one of the key things that is going to be a deciding factor is, are you going to battle with each other or are you going to work together? We saw in yesterday's race a battle allowed Pratama to open up a big gap in the early stages, and he was able to keep that all the way to the flag.
The one thing that 6-point margin as opposed to the 3-point margin means is that if Hakim Danish finishes 2nd, that will be good enough. So it's not just the 1st place that he needs. 2nd position will also be good enough, whereas Shinya Ezawa will be waiting on the results of Hakim Danish, even if he wins here today. Had it been 3 points, a win for either of them would have settled the championship. And at one stage, it looked as though we were going to be heading in tied, because it was the other way around in those podium positions, with Ezawa in front of Danish until Danish's late move to get back through for 3rd position.
Yeah, and that was a big factor in what the plan's going to be now for the likes of Hakim Danish in this race. But you've got to also just live with it as the race progresses. Everything's so close in ATC. You're always in a bit of a group, so you can't really have too much tactics, especially in the early stages of a race. You've just got to react to what's happening around you. And obviously for the championship contenders, that means you've got to think about where your rival is as well.
Mie dropped out of contention yesterday. He's under pressure for third overall now from Feder Pratama with his 2 recent race victories and 4 podiums for him in the 3 most recent rounds. But as far as the championship itself is concerned, it's Hakim Danish on 167 points. It's Shinya Ezawa on 161. 6 points between them. And you could very easily see this going down to being 1 point by the end of this race. It's going to be as tight as that. Last of the riders making their way, of course, to the grid. This is Putra, who hit problems on the line. Race 2 of the final round of the Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup gets underway. We watch to see who will claim the whole shot. It's Feder Pratama, the race 1 winner and pole sitter, who is the first away. Carter Thompson into second position. So there, as there were on the grid, Hakim Danish going very aggressively into turn 1 and almost clips the back tyre of Carter Thompson. So no hanging around for Hakim Danish, and neither is there any hanging around for Shinya Ezawa, his championship rival, who is straight through and onto Danish's tail in P4. That's a vital first turn overtake from him against Fetasan, who's been dropped down to 6th place.
Yeah, and a good start as well from Nicholas up into the top 5 as well from the 3rd row of the grid on the number 12 machine. As it is, Pratama at the front of the field, he's going to be under pressure on the opening couple of laps to see if he's able to hold off these riders behind him. Yesterday we saw that the lead group broke away, and then it was a case of Pratama in the middle of the race being able to open up a big gap to everyone else.
Right, rider Fetasan has been dropped down to 7th position now, as Wanto has come through as they go side by side for 2nd position as early as turn 10. A big action hotspot that was here yesterday.
Yeah, just seeing a black flag is being given now for the number 8, that's for Putra. He didn't manage to get to the starting grid in time, so he'll be black flagged and have to come back into the pit. So that's the end of his season.
A messy start to the race as far as he was concerned, and indeed this race as a whole, as Pratama makes the lunge back to the inside on Hakim Danish, who had initially led there at one stage on lap number 1. Ezawa's in the mix as well. This is where it gets tight, much tighter than it was in the early stages here yesterday, to be perfectly honest. 5 or 6 riders very much in that lead group and scrapping over the podium places early on, and they're queuing up, and there's contact already by the time we get to turn 16 on lap 1.
Yeah, we've already had 3 races today, and you can see there the 13, that's Hakim Danish getting ran out wide. But we've had 3 races already today, so there's much more rubber down on the track, and that's why we're able to have all those bikes much wider on the run down towards turn 16. 3
abreast coming off turn 16. It was Danish who was stuck up on the outside line, so Danish has got to get his head down now because he has been cost positions majorly. Start of lap number 2 then. It's Shinya Ezawa trying to go around the outside of Nicholas, who hits the front. Carter Thompson then also making his way through. Ezawa was pushed offline there going in towards turn 1, and that's dropped him back down the order. Rizwanto moving up into 3rd position.
Yeah, it looks like he's down to 6th and behind Hakim Danish's championship rival.
So those two not scrapping for 3rd position as they were yesterday. They're scrapping for 5th position here today. That's still going to be, if anything, work in the favour of Hakim Danish because the point swings are lower the further you get down the order.
Yeah, and certainly for Danish, it's about trying to manage this race as much as possible. Points all the way down to 15th, but it's all about trying to get the big points if you're Ezawa on the number 21 machine trying to get down the inside.
Yes, let's focus on how this group eventually splits up because you're quite sure that it will do. But at the moment, 1.5 seconds all the way down to 15th place. You can see Lacan there in the background of the shot. He's the last of the points paying positions as things stand. Hakim Danish there in 4th position, so back ahead of Shinya Ezawa, but your 2 championship rivals sitting in 4th and 5th positions as things stand.
And for Ezawa on the number 21 machine, he knows that he has to get through on Hakim Danish. He has to try and just unrattle and unsettle his rival as well, because in such a big group, that's what it's going to come down to. It's going to come down to your mentality.
As for the race lead, Rizwanto versus Thompson at the moment. Carter Thompson already once a race winner, race 1 in Sepang, the penultimate round of this season, and Rizwanto bidding for a first with best results yesterday. Outside of that lead group, we had 2 separate fights further back. I won't say that the race leader was in a fight because he was away and gone, but no such luck this time around. He led every lap yesterday, did Pratama, but he's down in 6th position on lap number 3. 16 laps, so a fair way still to go.
Yeah, it's a long race around this Mandela International Circuit, and a lot of that comes down to the fact that there's no real place to rest other than the start-finish straight. So for these ATC riders, you're always moving the bikes, you're always in a bit of a battle, and other than that start-finish straight, you get no chance to really have a bit of rest time.
Fastest lap of the last lap around, the first fully up to speed lap, as it were, in race 2 went to Andres Wanto, 1 minute 45.209 for him. Currently in that 4th position. It's Thompson who leads us then, from Nicholas in 2nd. The 2 Australian youngsters up at the head of the field. But that Australian dominance is about to be broken up by Hakim Danish, who puts a bike between himself and title rival Shinya Ezo. And Ezo is wide over the curbs, and Rizwanto is going to pull alongside. They almost touch, but eventually Rizwanto backs out of it going into turn 11.
Yeah, Ezo was brave as well to try and run around the outside, put a lot of faith in the other riders there that they're not going to make a mistake as well. So Ezo on the 21 knows that he can't afford to let this leading 3 break away. It's Nicholas Danish and Carter Thompson out in front, and you certainly can't afford to let them drop, because Hakim Danish, as the championship leader, he's in the position to win this title right now, and for the 21 of Ezwa, can't give up any margin.
We have generally been quite impressed with the cleanliness of the racing this weekend. The track has not been easy to manage at all in any of the classes that we've had in the Superbike paddock, let alone for some of our young guns. We're talking riders 13, 14, 15 years of age for many of them, but they have negotiated it pretty well. And for the moment, we've got all of the riders, barring Putra, still running in the group. 3 seconds now covering the top 14, though Lacan is the first to break away from the rear of that lead peloton. Danish getting back through on Carter Thompson, and another new fastest lap of the race last time around from Hakim Danish.
Yeah, but Danish runs in a little bit hot into turn 2 there. Carter Thompson's going to have a bit of a run on him now.
And on that racing line, the black strip that you can see of rubber laid down by all of the classes. This is the 7th and final race of the weekend here in Indonesia. We've had 3 in Superbikes and 2 in Supersport, as well as the Asia Talent Cup race 1 yesterday afternoon. Danish then who leads, Carter Thompson in 2nd, Nicholas in 3rd. There goes Ezoa fighting his way through. Watch out for turn 10. It is something of a pinch point. We've seen close calls already through this weekend in the Asia Talent Cup. We're going to see another one there. Carter Thompson running wide, as he did, remember, onto the green paint in the case of race 1, but running wide over the curve that time around opens the door to Hakim Danish, and once again he's your race leader.
Yeah, and you can see that lead group though is a case of changing places and trading paint all the way through. And for Ezo on the number 21 machine, we saw yesterday that turn 10 was his key overtaking opportunity. That was his favourite spot, and he's made a few moves into there already in this race.
So they come then towards turns 15 and 16, ever tightening right-handers, and change of position once again for the lead. Carter Thompson re-establishing himself at the head of the field, but he has run wide as they come through 16. It will give him the inside in time for turn 17. He sweeps back across the racing line and recovers that 2nd place at very least from Shinya Ezoa. But that holds up Ezoa momentarily. He's now half a second behind Hakim Danish. Is this an opportunity for Hakim Danish to break away? He's not going to be picked off going in towards turn number 1, and the rest of the circuit doesn't necessarily present major opportunities for slipstreaming.
You can see there for Nicholas on the number 12 and then Pratama both into turn 1, coming very close as they make their way through on Thompson and also Ezoa. So they're trying to make sure they can get to the front, but when you scrap like this, you cost each other momentum, you cost each other time. Hakim Danish has a chance to break away.
And if Danish can capitalise on it, he's now half a second ahead of Fede Pratama. If he can capitalise on it, then he puts himself in the position he needs to win the championship. Ezoa down in 4th position as things stand. Ezoa's got to beat Danish, remember, in order to claim the Age Talent Cup for 2022. Fede Pratama in 2nd position. If anyone's going to catch Danish with their head down and without relying on a slipstream advantage, it's Pratama, because he's had the pace all weekend, regardless of having anyone around him. He led race 1 from start to finish.
Yeah, from pole position, he's been impressive all the way through on the number 7 machine. Youngest rider in the field, but certainly a rider worth keeping an eye on.
Rider, ironically, who after the 16 laps he led yesterday has led more laps than anyone else in this Asia Talent Cup for 2022. Such has been the dominance when he has been able to lead races. Danish is now very much up against Pratama, who's closed the gap down to 0.2 of a second.
This is when the championship could well be lost for Ezoa. You can see Carter Thompson trying to come down the inside. We've already seen that the number 7 of Pratama has been able to break away from Ezoa. He's kept in front of Carter Thompson, but he can't afford to make a mistake. He runs out wide.
And bad news for Shinya Ezoa, picked off by Carter Thompson, drops behind him into 4th place. Meanwhile, Hakim Danish is up at the head of the field. He won't mind if Fede Pratama comes through for the race lead on lap 6 coming up, because as long as he sticks with him and stays away from the reach and the the clutches of Thompson and Ezawa, he'll be on his way to the Asia Talent Cup success. The question now is whether Danish is smart enough to work in tandem with Pratama just to try and build their gap for the remainder of this race.
Didn't fight back into turn one. He understands that if they work together, they're not going to cost each other time. So you want to make clean moves in the ATC. It's all everyone with the same bike, so it's all about using that slipstream, not costing each other time. They've got a second in hand on Thompson. Typically when you talk to the riders and the personnel from the ATC about this track, they say half a second is that gap where you can break away from everyone else.
And of course in these small bike, small capacity categories, the key is to keep up your momentum. The one thing you can't afford to do is see that momentum interrupted. Danish coming back through here on Pratama, but Pratama still maintaining your race lead, and Shinya Ezawa getting a little bit loose there on the tail of Carter Thompson for third.
Yeah, and Pratama's lap last time around, the fastest lap of the race, but interestingly, a couple of tenths of a second faster than anything we had yesterday as well. So track conditions as good as they've been for the ATC riders. Now it's up to them to get their head down, try and open up that gap.
End of the weekend, and the most rubber that will be laid down is down, and we see them making their way through. The times gradually evolving, the circuit gradually evolving, the times gradually improving as this weekend has gone on. Veda Pratama still leads from Hakim Danish in second. Shinya Ezawa getting back alongside Carter Thompson now as they make their way through 14 and 15 in towards the tightest point on the circuit, turn 16. Ezawa now has got to really launch his attack to try and close down Pratama, and particularly Danish in seconds.
Yeah, the big thing is, though, over the course of this weekend in the last few rounds, Carter Thompson's probably been the fastest rider overall. He's had a couple of pole positions in the last 2 rounds, qualified second for this weekend. He's actually a good rider to be able to work with. But for Ezawa, he's already 1.3 seconds behind Danish now. That gap's only getting longer.
Yes, Danish is not going to be afraid of just going with Pratama. He will have seen that Pratama escaped away 6 seconds at the head of the field in race 1. And if he does the same again here and Danish can stay with him, that will be 6 seconds he would have over Shinya Ezawa. Ezawa's going to have other ideas from third position, but you don't very often see groups close back together at this rate. 1.5 seconds is the gap now between second and third positions. Barring an error for Pratama and Danish, it's looking good for the number 13 to take this title.
Yeah, the race is won for the race is run as far as Ezawa is concerned, unless he's able to bridge that gap. It's so difficult in the ATC to bridge a gap like that just because of the nature of these bikes. So unless it comes down to a scrap at the front of the field with Danish and Pratama, you're not going to be able to catch them.
So Tryhardika there, who has gone down outside of the points-paying positions anyway, but obviously that will end his race on lap number 7. I think that was at turn 2. So the second retirement of the race after Putra was ordered back to the pits, and his race was over for failing to make it up to the grid on time. Danish and Pratama leading the way. Ezawa, Thompson, Nicholas and Wakamatsu in a group of 4 behind. They've now broken away from Adaki, and Adaki with Gunmie, who's going to end the season rather on a flat note with an uninspiring weekend after his championship challenge came to a halt yesterday.
That's a crash there for Tryhardika, and easily done through that section of the track. Turn 2, if you run in a little bit too hot, it's very easy to tuck the front just because you're a little bit offline. So unfortunate end to the season for him.
In now to lap number 8, less than a tenth of a second between Pratama and Danish. The gap down to less than a second now, though, to Shinya Ezawa. New personal best lap for Ezawa as he still continues to scrap with Carter Thompson, but he was almost half a second faster than Pratama and Danish a lap ago. He's run off the circuit altogether there, loose as you like, scrapping with every fibre of his body here to close down the top 2.
Battling like that doesn't help you. He needed to work with Carter Thompson to be able to close down that gap. Last time around, Thompson had been 4 tenths of a second faster than the race leaders. As it is, that mistake's going to have cost them about that 4 or 5 tenths of a second.
Yes, you'd suggest that that was almost desperation there from Shinya Ezawa, trying to have clear track in front of him to get his head down and close down Veda Pratama and Hakim Danish. But Danish at the moment not only looks like the championship winner for this season, but a potential race winner, just biding his time, remaining behind Pratama. You can see that he's letting off and choosing to brake earlier than Pratama just to leave him with track position because he doesn't need to hit the front.
And that's the difference. He's been able to see that if you try and attack them, you can lose time. Whereas with Ezawa trying to come through and Thompson, it was all about making sure you can make that move. So good racecraft there from Hakim Danish.
Next is still Ezawa and Thompson, who hold 3rd and 4th position. So Nicholas and Wakamatsu are still behind. Wakamatsu could only manage 9th position in race 1 yesterday, so going some way better to be in the mix for the podium places here this afternoon. But increasingly looking likely as though these are the top 2 in this race, barring dramas, of course. And Danish from here may well just think, do you know what, 2nd place and the championship is better than risking anything for 1st place in the closing stages.
Yeah, we'll have to wait until you get to that stage of the race. We're only at half distance now, but certainly for Hakim Danish, whenever he looks across at his pit board, he'll see that the gap's getting bigger. It's 1.6 seconds. He's just at his personal best and stretched out another second over his championship rival. And
Nicholas there on the number 12, getting to the front of that secondary group for 3rd position. So as far as Nicholas is concerned, previous best result of 5th place, moves himself into a podium position for the first time. So very much an opportunity for Nicholas to try and claim that maiden podium. Pratama versus Danish at the front. Good race going on behind though as well.
Yeah, it is a good battle going on for the final step of the podium, and all these riders want to be able to get that. Like you said, Nicholas chasing his first podium of the season. We've seen Carter Thompson so strong in the second half of this campaign on that number 6 machine as well. So Thompson, the whole way through this weekend, has been up there inside the top 3 or 4 spots, and he wants to make sure he can get another podium to back up what he had yesterday.
Plenty to work for further back as well, between Gun Mie as well as Adaki. And look at all the other riders. There's Wanto, Fadilla, Fetasan, Hafi, all in one group. They're directly behind, because Mie, in terms of the 3rd position in the championship, will see that evaporate too on the closing race of the campaign, because Veda Pratama is at the front of the field and would snatch 3rd position away overall.
Yeah, Pratama's had such good form over the course of the second half of this season. It's been really impressive to see a young rider like him, the youngest rider in the field, only 13 years of age, just really coming of age all the way through this season. He's certainly one to keep an eye on all the way through the next few years.
Well, you look at the scoring, if things were to stay as they are at present, and Pratama was only 46 points away from potential championship winner Hakim Danish, you'd say that the 2 missed races here in Mandalika earlier on in the season, when of course he crashed out in qualifying, have cost him potentially being a title contender.
Yeah, especially when you take into account that it was Danish that won both of those races as well, a maximum 50 points on offer for a weekend, and that's the difference right now between them in the championship standings. But you have to say that for the ATC, it's all about making sure that the moments when you can make people step up and take notice of you, that you take advantage of it. Pratama's done that all the way through this season.
Lap 9 is a big one in the context of the championship. Hakim Danish with a new fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 43 flat. Shinya Ezawa, a 1 minute 44.695. So over 1.5 seconds lost to his title rival Hakim Danish on 1 lap alone. And unless there are problems now, or unless these two really begin to hold one another up, Shinya Ezawa is seeing the Asia Talent Cup evaporate away with the 7 and the 13 at the head of the field.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to hold themselves up that much. It's going to be a case of if there's an instant between them, as it is for Hakim Danish. He's not willing to make that move right now. He's just keeping that watch and brief and keeping the pressure on.
And that secondary group now runs from 3rd position all the way to 13th, with just 2 seconds separating them. So Thompson, Ezawa, Nicholas and Rizwanto were ahead of the rest, and a group of 4 riders, and then a separate group further back. Those 2 groups have now largely merged. So Thompson, who is 3.6 seconds down on Hakim Danish in 3rd place, is now leading a train of 10 or so riders.
Yeah, and Thompson's the rider at the front of that train with black helmet, and he's been impressive all the way through. But look at Ezawa, every single chance he has to get to the front of this group, he's taking it and he's trying to do what he can to get back to the race leaders, but it's a battle that he's not going to be able to win.
Well, that was worth doing yesterday, because Danish was in the same group as him, so every time he was making an overtake, it was an overtake on Danish for a potential point swing in his favour. Fighting with Carter Thompson really is meaningless as far as he is concerned in race 2. The fight is with Danish, who's now 4.2 seconds up the road.
Well, the problem for Ezawa on the number 21 machine is that any time he's got to the front of this group, it's been the likes of Mikolas on the number 12 machine launching a move down the inside.
As we watch this group for 3rd position, and Thompson comes back through on Ezawa, and Nicholas is the next rider to have a go on the number 12 bike. Adaki making good progress now at this stage of the race. I did tell you to watch out for Adaki trying to fight his way through from the 4th row of the grid. He's now up from 10th position and into 6th. And for anyone in this group, if they hook it up, if they stay in the slipstream, if they make their passes cleanly, really any rider at this stage at very least, with 5.5 laps still to go, could take a place on the podium here this afternoon.
Yeah, exactly. You can see it is starting to stretch out now with those 4 riders, and that's where, especially for Nicholas and Adaki, they've got to make sure that they're able to stay with Thompson and Ezawa.
Yes, the four of them that had broken away previously, starting to break away again now, and they will hope that this is going to turn into a battle among themselves. But Adaki is the one who's made the most progress, because he split himself away from Wakamatsu and Rizwanto behind, and is now right on the tail of Nicholas and ready to have a go, you fancy, for 5th position as they make their way now into the final sector on lap 11 of 16.
You can see for Carter Thompson just looking nice and comfortable there at the front of the field. He's shown it all the way through this weekend and in both races that he wants to be in the lead positions in these groups. He wants to be the one dictating the pace.
Yes, 3rd position for him in the Thai Grand Prix Race 2. He was the Race 1 winner in the Malaysian Grand Prix, and 2nd position here yesterday for Carter Thompson. So he knows about getting up onto the podium, and he too is hoping to make progress. He is 5th in the championship. Fair margin though for him to the riders in front, so probably 5th that he will end this 2022 campaign. New personal best lap last time around from Feder Pratama. Don't think he's going to break away from Hakim Danish too easily. Still only 1.5 tenths of a second between the two of them, and this is where the closest action is, and the most position changes as well. Once again goes to the podium battle.
Yeah, and once again, as we've seen so many times in the past in the ATC, whenever you're battling, you're costing each other time. It's 9 tenths of a second it lost the race leaders last time around, so 6 seconds in hand for Hakim Danish. He just needs to cruise the final quarter of this race, and no need to latch onto the back of Pratama and try and win the championship with a race victory.
But when you look further back, 3rd position down, 1/10 of a second, 1/10 of a second, 1/10 of a second, 1/10 of a second. The gap between each of the riders from 3rd place is down to 8th. Then it's Wakamatsu and Gunmie. So still those places at very least can easily change. 2 seconds from 3rd to 13th, as it was just a few short laps ago. As far as the championship is concerned, well, Shinya Ezawa in 4th position, Hakim Danish in 2nd. So it would be a more flattering lead than certainly it's looked since the Race 1 retirement for Danish. Remember, he crashed out of Race 1 in Sepang from the lead, so it could have been even more of a points lead, or the championship could even have been settled up by now. But Danish still looking good to claim it on the final day of the campaign.
Yeah, Danish has been very impressive all the way through the season, whether it's in the ATC or the ETC, and he's been able to pick up a couple of podiums in Europe as well in the Junior GP paddock. So this has been a very complete season for him across the board, but now he just needs to make sure he can complete the race and get to claim this ATC title.
Yes, he has managed to lead the championship all the way since March, has Hakim Danish. Despite that retirement from Race 1 in Sepang, he extended his lead over the 2 most recent races. And Danish, who, as I say, first led the championship back in March, is looking good to claim it here this afternoon as well. They're 3 abreast now, back in towards turn number 1 for 3rd position, and Adaki back into that 3rd spot. He was a race winner towards the start of this season, was Amon Adaki. Race 2 winner in the Qatar Grand Prix the first weekend of March. Just hasn't quite been able to sustain his challenge since then. A couple of non-scores that have proven too costly for him.
Yeah, and that's been the big thing. It's about consistency in the ATC, to be able to come away with a title. Hakim Danish has been able to do that with a lot of race wins, 4 race wins, and an extra couple of podiums as well. So that's why he's been so consistent all the way through. But you have to say, for his championship rival Ezawa, it's been impressive to see him up inside the top 6 positions in every race as well. He's always been in that leading group, and it's just not going to quite come together for him here today.
It's going to be good that we've had 5 different winners from the 6 rounds in 2022. We've had a good variety of riders up on the podium as well. Perhaps as you'd expect in these youth classes, one weekend to another, the pecking order can rather change. But there's been little doubt about the man who's been dominant this weekend in Indonesia, and that's Feder Pratama, and he is still your race leader.
And that's why he's going to be a rider worth keeping an eye on for the next few years. Obviously, the minimum age limits have been rising in recent years for different classes of bikes, so he's going to be on Talent Cup bikes for the next while, but certainly you wouldn't be too surprised to see him racing in Europe as well next season, and see what he's able to fare over there.
Daki, Mie, Thompson and Ezawa in that order. It is Gunmie now trying to make progress as they come through turn 16. Mie managed to jab it down the inside of fellow countryman Adaki to come through for 3rd place. Adaki then relegated down to 5th. Carter Thompson now has slotted through as well. Adaki will recover as they come back towards turn number 1. Lap 14, so 3 now to go. The countdown really begins for Hakim Danish. He is half a second now down on Feder Pratama. Does rather look, for the moment at least, as though he's settling in for 2nd in the championship.
Yeah, half a second behind, but 9 seconds in hand over his championship rival, so it's certainly no reason to be pushing too hard now in the closing stages. Just enjoy the last 3 laps.
I said it at the top of the programme, the calculations were as complicated or as straightforward as you wanted to make them, but for Hakim Dinish, a top 2 finish was going to be enough, even if it was his title rival, or even if it were his title rival Shinya Ezawa in front of him at the flag. And as the case is, it's Fede Pratama. The other simple calculation for Hakim Dinish was beat Ezawa and you're the champion. So at the moment, he's doing the top 2 that he needs. He's beating the man that he needs to, and this looks comfortably good enough as the rest of the field will scrap intensely now for 3rd position. And look at that big group still with only 3 laps to go.
Yeah, and all the scrapping's causing this pace to drop off down into the 1 minute 45, so about 2 seconds a lap slower than they can be, just because you're battling like this and fighting with each other through the nail trying to get to the front of the group. But with 2 laps to go when they come across the line, that's what you got to do. You're fighting for a podium in the ATC.
Well, that's it. The reality is for most of those riders, they don't really care about the championship standings. They don't care who's champion of the Asia Talent Cup. They're just thinking about whether they can get 3rd position this afternoon and walk away with their head held high in the final race of the 2022 season. Shinya Ezawa will desperately try to break away, but as far as the championship is concerned, it's only a mistake now from Hakim Dinish that could change things at the head of the field. Lap 14 and a new fastest lap of the race from Fede Pratama, 1 minute 42.765. He's gapped Hakim Dinish now by over a second, 1.4 seconds last time over the line with 2 to go. So Dinish is now settling in for 2nd place. But the gap to this fight, Adaki Thompson and Ezawa lunging into turn 1. The result of that is that they're 10 seconds still behind Dinish.
Yeah, and Gunmiya was the rider that was the odd one out in the run through turn 1. He was the one that got pushed out wide there, so he moves from the front of this group all the way to the back.
And that, I'm afraid, is bad news around this circuit, because if you are pushed offline, you don't just lose 1 position. The grip levels are far higher on that rubbered-in racing line. It's one of the most dramatic racing lines that you'll see. It's almost like a flat track groove at this stage. The riders have got to stick on it, otherwise they're going to lose time massively. Pratama then escaping away, 1.8 seconds ahead of Dinish at the end of the field. Dinish has used Pratama for what he needed him for, which was to get clear of this battle for 3rd position. Much as Ezawa may go on to claim 3rd place, that will not be enough. He needed to beat Hakim Dinish here to claim the Asia Talent Cup for 2022.
Yeah, as it is, though, he wants to end the season with that podium as well, and for all the other riders in this group, especially the likes of Carter Thompson on the number 6 machine, he's been very strong in the second half of the year. He also wants that final race podium, but there's a few riders in that group as well chasing their first podiums of the season.
Thompson in the mix as well, and just eyeing up an opportunity to get through here on Shinya Ezawa. Watch for Odaki, who's been able to repeatedly come through to the front of this group. Just over a lap now to go.
Watch for the number 19 of Haffey as well, because he's been the rider that's slowly and surely picked off one after the other to get himself up into 6th position, and it looks like he's maybe picked up another spot as well there from the timing tower on the left-hand side of the screen.
Yes, Farish Haffey, who had a best results thus far. This is his debut Asia Talent Cup season of 6th position. That was race 1 of round 1, all the way back in March for 6th position. Then Haffey, I should say, he's up in 5th position and scrapping with Ezawa, and has actually got through by the looks of things for 4th position. We saw them there picked up, making their way through the first sector. Pratama now has a 3-second lead, so this is the kind of dominant pace we've seen for him. Quite happy to run his own race on his own at the front of the field. He's led more laps than anyone else in the Asia Talent Cup in 2022, and he's adding some more here this afternoon.
Yeah, very impressive campaign from Pratama, but it's all about this scrap now for the final step of the podium. And certainly for the likes of Carter Thompson, he's always wanted to be at the top of that group through the course of this race, but is that the place you want to be now with a half lap to go?
Hakim Dinish, who has been the dominant force in this championship. He's had more wins, he's had more podiums than anyone else this season. He has been the man to beat. He's not this weekend. That's Fede Pratama, who's going to do the double, but Hakim Dinish, 3.8 seconds now behind the race leader, has got far too much in hand for Ezawa to even dream of making it up. It's over 10 seconds, that gap to 3rd position. Pratama, your race leader. Gunmiya is still down in 8th place, so he still has the opportunity to make up those extra positions and the extra 6 points to claim 3rd overall. But it is going to be Fede Pratama who exits the final turn to make it back-to-back victories and dominate his home round, the Indonesian round, the last of the season. And Hakim Dinish crosses the line in the 2nd place that he needs in the final race of the season. It's gone down to the wire, but your 2022 Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup winner is Hakim Dinish. Shinya Ezawa gets the final step on the podium, and some pride to to end the season on a relative high for him, but he'll have been disappointed to miss out directly behind Dinesh. It was third and fourth for the two of them yesterday in race one. It's second and third this afternoon, and on both occasions it's Ezawa who's missed out.
Yeah, and it's a unfortunate nature for Ezawa. There has to be a winner, there has to be a loser, and for Ezawa in this final round of the year, he just hasn't quite been able to do the job that Hakim Dinesh has done, and Dinesh a very well deserving ATC winner for 2022, and nice to see a Malaysian win the ATC for the first time as well.
Good work from Ezawa, you must say, though, as well, to hold on for that third position. A second covering positions 3 to 9, so anyone could have finished on the final step of the podium. It's not a coincidence that it's the rider who finds himself so high in the championship as to finish second.
Yeah, it's been a really strong campaign all the way through from Ezawa. He's been really consistent inside the top 6 all the way through the season, most of that time on the podium as well, so it has been a really good campaign for him, and just like Hakim Dinesh and Pratama, there'll be riders worth keeping an eye on going forward.
And I wonder whether when that T-shirt was measured, it was measured to go over the top of leathers, because we're about to find out they had trouble getting the T-shirts on for the first time. It is the celebratory one as far as Feder Pratama is concerned. He is your race 2 winner. But Hakim Dinesh for the Asia Talent Cup in 2022. Eventually the T-shirt just about, no, still not. Just go around on your lap of honour with the flag. That's good enough. I think the title is well and truly wrapped up by this stage, and everyone knows it.
The problem as well is all these ATC riders, they grow quite a lot at this age as well, so for Hakim Dinesh, it's been such a good season all the way through. He's had podiums in the ETC as well, and now this ATC success as well, but it has been a season where he's shown himself to be the rider with the best racecraft in the ATC and a real cool head, and he's had to have it.
This is what I absolutely love about the Asia Talent Cup. Out here, they're as passionate about this category as they are about any other in the world, and they were more enthusiastic about getting a photo with their home hero and race 2 winner this afternoon, Feder Pratama, than perhaps they have about some of the other action. But certainly delighted to see that Feder Pratama and the Indonesian national anthem will be heard once again.
Yeah, and it's been a really good weekend for Pratama. You can see there for Ezawa, just celebrating in his cool down lap as well at the end of a long season, and a good season as well. He's been able to come away second in the championship standings, and it's been a strong, consistent campaign for him. Just didn't quite have enough to be able to take that title from Hakim Dinesh.
Yeah, started the season so strongly. He was our opening race winner of the season at the Qatar Grand Prix. Had podiums here in Mandalika back-to-back as well in the latter stages of March. Came back after the summer break and won the first race back in Motegi. Of course, one of the two we lost due to the weather conditions at the Japanese Grand Prix. But it's since then that Hakim Dinesh has really stamped his authority on the title race. Up to that stage, after Motegi, it was 2 wins apiece for the two of them. Dinesh has come back, won race 1 in Buriram, won race 2 in Sepang, and then has done the job this weekend with a 3rd and a 2nd. So finishes the season with those 3 consecutive podiums, and that's enough as far as Hakim Dinesh is concerned to bring it home.
Yeah, it really is, and it's been impressive all the way through. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens for Dinesh going forward, whether or not he'll move on to a Moto 3 style bike next year in the Junior GP paddock, or whether or not he'll keep in the European Talent Cup, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out for him. Obviously, the ATC, we've seen over the years some top riders coming through here and being our champions at the end of a season, whether you're looking at the likes of our inaugural champion Somkhat Chantra, or Dennis Onju, of course, a champion a few years ago and now a regular front runner and potential race winner in the Moto 3 World Championship. Ayagor has come through the ranks here. He challenged for a Moto 2 World Championship. Just what does the future hold for Hakim Dinesh as well?
Yes, the 8th title holder in the Asia Talent Cup is Hakim Dinesh, just making his way round now to complete his lap of honour. He is, unsurprisingly, the last rider back to the paddock and milking it somewhat, as is his right after claiming the Asia Talent Cup here this afternoon. Penultimate rider back is Feder Pratama, your race winner, and a popular race winner, as I've said at that.
Yeah, it certainly is, and here in front of a home crowd, it's a good chance for the Indonesians to cheer on one of their own.
And what about that for a way to end the season as well? Second place and a win in the Thai Grand Prix, second place from race 2 in Sepang, and then back-to-back victories this weekend in Mandalika. So very, very strong finish indeed as far as Feder Pratama is concerned.
Yeah, youngest rider in the field, but your clear favourite for next year's title as well, and it's up to him to carry that forward into the 2023 season.
Yes, and there's already an extent to which everyone's looking ahead to that 2023 campaign because as far as next season is concerned, selection event already took place in Malaysia, so 9 riders confirmed to be added to the field, as well as a series of reserves depending on whether there's anyone who's eligible who elects not to participate for next season. So the backup is ready for the turnover should it be required, but for the moment at least the focus is on this young man, Hakim Dinish, and he is your Age Talent Cup winner for 2022.
And see Hafiz Sarian in the background as well down there to celebrate the success of another Malaysian rider.
And so we see Hakim Dinish then claiming the Age Talent Cup title with second position in race 2 this afternoon. Shinya Ezawa behind him, which was the key, but as far as strategy for that race was concerned, it was get onto the tail of Fede Pratama. Smart race. That was won by the brain. That one by Hakim Dinish.
Yeah, it was in the very early stages where Dinish made a decision not to attack for the race win with Pratama, making sure that they were able to work together and try and open up a gap. And that gap stretched out to 15 seconds at the flag to everyone else. So it is a case of just being as smart as you have to be in the ATC, because these are races where it comes down to your tactics as much as your speed.
Dinish showing that maturity again in the final few laps when the championship became the bigger priority than the race win. He didn't go hell for leather trying to chase down Pratama. There was a stage there before he began to back off the pace where he could easily have made a lunge down the inside of Pratama, but probably felt he didn't want Pratama coming back at him because that would have been the bigger risk to the Asia Talent Cup title than just sitting in second place that made it comfortable.
Yeah, nothing to gain by attacking on the last lap just for a race victory, but on that last lap as well, it's worth noting that Pratama was only 1/10 of a second off the race record as well, so he was really putting on at the closing stage of this race, so impressive stuff from him.
Yes, Fede Pratama, your race winner, 1:42.9 on the final lap around when everyone else was running in the 44s at best. And Hakim Dinish among those riders, 4.4 seconds down on Fede Pratama in the end, rather settling in for the second place that he needed in order to confirm the Asia Talent Cup title. So good to see so much passion and excitement for this class.
Yeah, look, there's a fan club there for Hakim in the background as well, so that's good to see here in the paddock as well, and good atmosphere to close out the ATC season.
Fair few signatures on that. You can get nice and close to the action down by being in the paddock for the Superbike World Championship. We're very fortunate spectators here to have great access to the podium celebrations, and they'll be on hand to watch Pratama, Dinish and Ezawa, and then of course to see the trophy presentation for Dinish as well, confirmed as the Asia Talent Cup winner for 2022. And all of these riders will think about where they go on to next, but what a great group we have. Third position down to 12th place. Poor old Adaki in the end ends up at the back of that group after fighting his way through, drops back down to 12th place, and that just goes to show you how many evenly matched riders there are just behind that lead trio who have been a cut above the rest in 2022.
Yeah, and I saw in the closing stage as well, Hafiz still able to come away with that top 5 finish, career best effort from him, and a really good recovery ride considering he was all the way at the back of that group for much of the race.
Yes, and a good ride for Raykat Fadilla as well, between Ezawa and Hafi. For Fadilla, he was a podium finisher race 1 in Mandalika earlier on in the season, so obviously a venue that the local rider clearly enjoys. He is Indonesian, Raykat Fadilla. So through 2 of the top 4 positions are home representatives, but most importantly of all, it's the rider on the top step of the podium again who represents Indonesia, and the locals here passionate about their riders. A nice strong attendance this weekend of over 50,000 quoted for the Indonesian round, so Fede Pratama is certainly going to receive some great support here.
Yeah, and he did yesterday as well, with the anthem being blared out by everyone singing it with pride, and certainly for Pratama it's going to be a weekend to remember for a long time going forward, but the season comes to a close, and it couldn't have come to a close in a better way. Double success here at his home round.
Just waiting for the podium trio now to emerge. Shinya Ezawa, Hakim Dinish and Fede Pratama, your top 3, and big margins between them in the end, but not to the group behind. Quoted it previously, 14.9 seconds the gap between first and third places, and Fetasan in 9th position, only a second behind third at the checkered flag.
Yeah, second 1.5 took Ezawa all the way down to 12th potentially, so that just shows you how close it can be. When all these bikes being so identical, it does come down to the riders to make the difference, figure out their tactics through the course of the race. The fronts of the field, Pratama and Dinesh figured out their tactics a little bit earlier than everyone else. They were able to work really well together.
Quick word on Gunmie as well. Misses out on a place on the championship rostrum in the end. Came into this weekend third in the standings, still with mathematical hopes of the title itself. Dropped out of the running yesterday in 5th position, only 8th place here today. That means that with Fede Pratama up at the head of the field, he nicks 3rd position overall. But Gunmie deserves his credit for his part in this championship as well. He's had 3 second places and a couple of thirds, strong in Buriram and race 1 in Sepang to bring himself back into contention. Just ran out of steam this weekend.
Yeah, it's been a tough end to the season for Gunmie. Last year here in Indonesia, he was one of the riders to keep an eye on, so certainly he'll be another name that people will be paying attention to going forward. But right now it's all about Pratama as the race winner and Dinesh as our ATC winner.
Trophy presentations then about to be made to Shinya Ezawa, who takes 3rd position in race 2 of the Indonesian round, and then 2nd place to Hakim Dinesh, but he's already wearing that 2022 Asia Talent Cup winner t-shirt and regalia. So here is your first podium presentation to Shinya Ezawa, the 10th of course, race of the season yesterday, where he was able to get close to the podium but not quite onto it. He's back on the podium here today. Shinya Ezawa, that's his 6th podium in the 11 races that we've had in 2022.
Yeah, super consistent season, always inside the top 6 positions, and he's been rewarded with 2nd in the overall standings, and we look pretty pleased with his podium there.
It is Hakim Dinesh, though, who takes honours here this afternoon. Only made his debut relatively recently in this class. He's not one of the class veterans. Gunmie has got more experience in the category, but it was Hakim Dinesh who has managed to bring it home. It is not to be as far as race victories are concerned. He ends with the 4. 2 of them, though, here in Mandalika earlier on in the season, back in March. That very much put him in pole position as far as claiming this championship is concerned. He saved himself, really, after the fall from race 1 in Sepang by bouncing straight back to his 4th victory of the season. He was also a winner in Buriram. So a few different venues there where Hakim Dinesh has been a race winner. But it's Fede Pratama who is your race winner here this afternoon, representing Indonesia. National anthem, well and truly well sung. Just with the door to the commentary box open, we could hear it louder outside than we could over the world feed here.
Yeah, great atmosphere here in the paddock for these ATC riders, and certainly for Pratama, he's been given that hero's welcome back into Park Fermi by everyone.
Now they're all on the top step of the podium to share the moment together. Fede Pratama, your race winner, Hakim Dinesh and Shinya Ezawa, 2nd and 3rd in race 2 this afternoon, but 1st and 2nd in the championship. And those are your 3 riders for the championship rostrum, of course, because Fede Pratama comes through on Gunmie for the 3rd position overall. But 2022 honours belong to Hakim Dinesh. Hakim Danish there of Malaysia, celebrating his race 2 victory in Sepang, and one that put him on course to this Asia Talent Cup title for 2022. In the end, it's a 10-point winning margin over Shinya Ezawa in the point standings overall. But the gap that stood at just 3 points at the start of this weekend opened up to 6 points yesterday, but it could very easily have gone the other way because Shinya Ezawa at various times yesterday in race 1 was up ahead of Danish, and Ezawa second and Danish fourth was an entirely possible proposition, at least yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, it was, and for Danish, he was able to get himself across the line all the way through, and that's exactly what it takes to be successful in the ATC. And he kept a cool head, and for Ezawa and for Pratama in particular in the closing stages of the season, they were able to give him a good rivalry, but ultimately it was one rider making the difference.
So here is your championship podium then, with Feder Pratama taking third position on 141 points, nicking third place away from Gunmie in the final race with back-to-back victories, and Gunmie missing out on the podium in each of the final 3 races of this campaign. Feder Pratama making up ground hand over fist in that spell. Second place goes the way of Shinya Ezawa, just missing out and running out of steam at this final round, but he does get back onto the race podium as well as onto the series podium itself with that second position overall, and he was a race winner earlier on in the season, both race 1 in Qatar and the Seoul race in Motegi for the Japanese Grand Prix weekend. Second to Hakim Danish in race 1 in Mandalika for the Indonesian Grand Prix. Here at the Indonesian round, finishes third this afternoon, and second overall. Hakim Danish then is your Asia Talent Cup winner, the 8th Asia Talent Cup winner, the 9th season of this competition in 2022, and Hakim Danish will receive the biggest gold medal I've ever seen, I think, on the top step of the podium, and his followers certainly enjoying that.
Yeah, it's a good medal for each of those riders, and a little long remember, but I think certainly for Danish it's going to be interesting to see what the future's going to hold for him, and obviously we've seen plenty of Asia Talent Cup graduates over the year go on to great things in the Grand Prix paddock.
So your final photo of the season is your championship podium, your end of season rostrum, with Feder Pratama, your double race winner in Indonesia this weekend, taking third overall. Shinya Ezawa with the silver medal, and your Asia Talent Cup winner for 2022 is Hakim Danish.
Special award in recognition of this amazing championship. Please welcome onto the podium Luis Martinez, the manager of Talent Promotion Department at Taurus Sports. He will join the top 3 riders and declare Asia President will present the special recognition award. Untuk yang sangat khusus diberikan kepada congratulations to the Congratulations to Luis and to the entire Asia Talent Cup team, and of course congratulations to our top 3. We just wait there to get the signal. We're going to have a chat to our top 3 in a second. Congratulations to the top 3. Luis and the President will leave. And one more time, ladies and gentlemen, our top 3 in the 2022 Idemitsu Asia Talent Cup: Hakim Danish, Shinya Ezawa, and Feder Pratama.
So race 2 brings us to the conclusion of this 2022 Asia Talent Cup. Round 6 is complete with a victory for Feder Pratama ahead of Hakim Danish and Shinya Ezawa. As far as the championship standings are concerned, it's Danish by a 10-point margin over Ezawa and Feder Pratama. Your final championship classification and the main position change this afternoon. Feder Pratama leapfrogs Gun Mie, and there was a gap of 11 points between them, but Pratama's back-to-back victories this weekend have propelled him into third overall. You've already seen your championship podium. Mie then relegated down to fourth position. Reika Fadilla also moving ahead of Rei Wakamatsu, was relegated down to 13th position in race 2 this afternoon. Reika Fadilla with fourth place ahead of Farish Hafi in race 2. Hafi putting in his best result of this 2022 campaign. The Asia Talent Cup then will return in 2023 for its 10th season, but in the meanwhile, it's time to celebrate our 8th champion, Hakim Dinish.